Today we're talking about grad school, more specifically, whether or not I should go to grad school or not. And I know this is kind of like it's a challenging topic because it's something that I didn't think I would do before I went to college, while I was going to college. Even as I finished through my first 3 years of being out of college, I never thought I would go back to school. And before you get ahead, I am not telling you that I am going to school yet, back to school yet, but let me explain this whole process because it's definitely a topic that I think the typical person would wait to tell you until they applied and they got accepted to get into like grad school. But I'm doing it another way because it is the life of a Latina engineer, and I'm gonna walk you through the steps. And also because I don't think I can make a wrong decision now, and I want to also share what are the things that are coming into my life that are going to contribute into whether I go or not to grad school. So the title of this video is probably should I go to grad school? And this is really where I'm sitting at right now. So we are around Christmas time. You can see my Christmas tree right here. I'm about a week before my wedding in Mexico. I'll be gone out of the country for about 2 weeks, 2 weeks and a half. So it's definitely a time where everything is like, it's like I'm gonna stop having a schedule. But I think it's also a really good time to think about it because this is recently that came up and I want to record it while I'm still fresh, because once I come back from Mexico, it's probably going to be like sit down and finalize, what are the next steps in your life. So let's go over what are the things that I'm considering about whether I should go or not. So I'm sitting here right now telling you that whether or not I should go before doing anything at all whatsoever towards going to grad school. So I didn't take any courses or undergrad getting ready for that. I never really thought I would go to grad school. I have recently mentioned now that I have had the chance to meet a lot of girls that are going and women that are going into grad school in the engineering field, and they have been really motivating and really inspiring. But at the same time, I also always kept into account that I couldn't just wanted to do something because somebody else was doing it, but rather because it was something that applied to my life. So some of the things that I always mention to consider when you're going to grad school is, one, does it apply to the job that you're going to do? Have you been done with your undergrad? Are you doing it right away or are you waiting? I always recommend that you get some experience and then that you go back to grad school, which I'll go into it a little bit in a bit, because actually the program that I'm looking for requires you to have work experience before you go into grad school. So I always usually recommend to go to work first, work for a year or two, so that you can find what you like to do, and I feel like you have a better sense of direction on what you want to focus on. And in my case, it was like a change from one to the other. Other things that I like to consider is, how are you going to pay for this degree? Is it the company going to help you? Is it going to come out of your budget? Are you looking for any scholarships or financial aid? Because that also comes into account whether you want to be into debt or you want to start working, start paying those student loans, and then when you find someone to either sponsor you, like a company, or find other ways, then it might be easier to do it. So some of the things I'm also looking at, for example, right now, and then I'll go now into exactly those points that I highlighted and how this affects me. So to me, now that I am working, I've been working for 3 years. I am now venturing into a leadership position where I have 3 people directly reporting to me. It was like I'm getting my toes into the water. I'm trying to figure that out, and I'm trying to prepare myself for that. That also being said, I've always wanted to grow into a leadership role. I wanted to have an engineering manager position, maybe grow more. At the same time, I have my doubts whether I just wanted to stay as an engineer so I could balance everything else in my life. Let's say, for example, Latina engineer, having kids, moving countries, things like that. But now that I have been exposed a bit to a leadership role, I have found that I really enjoy it. It really makes me happy to go into that role, to go into those challenges. So I'm looking more in like, maybe I push myself again to that route where I want to find myself to those management positions and that growth path, rather than just staying stationary. Other things that I'm also looking at, and now we get, I guess, into the money, is like, I am working for a company that reimburses you if you go to school. I am not 100% how much, because I'm telling you, I haven't really done the research yet to like, where am I going to go, where am I going to go, how am I going to cover especially, but I'm starting to get into that process. And to be honest, it is something that I don't really want to look forward as much as like the company covering, because I know it won't cover 100%, but my goal is to also get a scholarship so that I can get this funded. You know, I advocate a lot for Latinas in engineering. I create scholarships myself, so I know that there are the resources are out there, and I want to be able to also see, you know, experience that as well, you know, searching for scholarships so that I can share it with you. And the other part of, so we talked about, you know, the career, where I kind of was heading, where I want to head now, and then we're talking about money, how I want to manage this. You know, one of the things that I kind of set it as a deciding factor, and like I'm telling you this before I put anything into writing. You know, all I have done is think about it, kind of research a little bit about the programs that I want to do, and that's pretty much it. So another thing that I thought it would be interesting was, since we're talking about the scholarships and finances, is if I could get 100% covered through either financial aid or scholarship, grants, things like that. As you know, as a minority, as a Latina, how does this play into the fact? What are the likelihood to get accepted or not into the programs that I'm looking at, and how much support I can receive now that I will be looking into venturing into higher, you know, not just higher education, but like a master's degree. And besides from that, is lastly, I think the most challenging part of it is the bandwidth that I had, whether I can take on something like this, which is a degree, which is a commitment, or am I just setting up myself for burnout and for failure because I won't be able to do it. So I have my full-time job, and I did a video recently of how to do everything, and I feel like this just adds another level of extreme complication, because it is a commitment that is not just something that I'm going to be done in 6 months. It's not something that I'm just going to be done in 1 year, because I am still working full-time. So having a full-time job as an engineer, now with leadership, where you have people working all 3 shifts and you might get pulled in at any time of the day, and then also having Latina Engineer, having a nonprofit, an annual event that has grown tremendously and that it takes a lot of my time, especially during the fall season, and then also having the content creator, making all those partnerships. It's like a second job sometimes, so it can take a lot of time. And other than that, I am getting married in a week. I am looking into growing my family in the next, 2, 3, 4 years. And, once you kind of make that switch, I have never been a parent before, so I don't know how much time commitment or how tired I'm going to be either. And if I'm already halfway through a master's and I have a baby and I can no longer finish it, that's when I want to think, am I setting up myself for something that I can do or that I can't do, or how is this going to work? So some of the things that have come into account are as well are, do I want to give up Latina Engineer? Do I want to only give up parts of it? Do I want to wait until I find a way to find a team, or find a way so that I am not making every single part of the work, but more of like a team that can help me and I can just kind of manage it so that it's not as, heavy on me? Other things are, do I want to keep working full-time, or do I want to, take like 6 months off? And this goes into account where, like, do I have kids or not? And if I do have kids and I get pregnant, do I take advantage of that, maternity leave? That's when I take like 6 months, I go to school, maybe that semester I take more classes. How is that actually going to work? Because it sounds easy to say that, but at the same time it's going to be crazy, because if you have a kid, you just, gave birth, and it's still, nothing's going to stop just because you don't feel okay. So it has definitely brought a lot of challenges and a lot of things that I need to think about, and I need to decide, what is going to come first. Do I want to push growing my family until maybe a couple years later? Because I am still 25, so I feel like I'm not in any type of rush to be like, I have to have kids now. But it's something that I want, and sometimes it feels like I want it sooner than later. But maybe is it a better decision to wait a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 years later, so that I could concentrate more on one thing and then be more prepared, which actually is you're never ready. So those are really challenging situations that I can't even give you an answer yet, but that once I started talking and thinking about grad school, it was just like, how is this going to work? How is this going to work? What is this? What is this? And it's just a lot. So just so you can get, like, I guess, a clear and filter idea of what's going on in my mind as I'm considering something like this. And this is why I'm not waiting until whether I apply or completely decide not to, but so that you can walk through it with me and see, all the things that are coming into account. last thing I want to share is what type of programs I want to go into. I guess I should have started with this. You know what? You want to go to grad school, but like, what do you want to do? So I'm looking into engineering management. And I was actually looking into one specific program that will be completely online, virtual. So I wouldn't go physically to school. They do have the opportunity to do in person or do a hybrid, but it is in a different state, the school that I want to go to. So it's easier just overall to do it virtually. It is not as fun. You don't get to interact with everyone as good, but I think it would make it less complicated on top of everything that I just mentioned. And this specific engineering management career or degree that I'm looking at actually requires you to have at least 2 years of experience. So it is something that I wouldn't have been able to do, I guess, right away, right after college. So it's perfect because I'll fit right in because I have 3 years of experience. They asked for 2, and I feel like this is like, I read the whole program and I read the classes and things like that and how many credits, and it feels exciting when I read about it. It's just a matter of finding out, is this possible or not, or do I really want to focus on this? Like, is this the final goal, or do I want to like switch it, or is this time to maybe pick a different path? Because my whole life I have 2 different paths, and I'm always trying to balance them and see like which one do I want to go for. And sometimes I kind of go one way, sometimes I come back to the other. And some days I wake up, or like I go to Mexico, I come back and I'm like, this is what I want to do. And then you think about it and you're like, well, maybe. So just, I guess, to make more sense, my life has always been split through the middle with 2 goals at the end, which some things overlap, but some don't. And they're very radical in some aspects. Just to let you know, it's like 2 different countries. So the 2 lives completely, they have different paths. So to me, it's like, do I want to finally stick with this one over sticking with that one? Or do I want to make a mixture where I commit to this one for 10 years and it pushes this other dream life for another 10 years and I won't get to it until 10 years from now? Or do I say, scratch this, let's do this now, let's go for it, because one of them is way more riskier than the other one, and just see what happens with this one and just hope that it's actually as good as I've always thought it would be, and just kind of thinking like maybe there's no way back once I do it. So my life has always been split, and I feel like this is a defining moment that if I go for grad school, I'm picking this one. If I don't go to grad school, I'm gonna pick this one. And then there's the neutral that it's complicated. One more thing that came up while I was looking all into this, and I was looking at the application process, the requirements, asking for recommendation letters, thinking about like who I would ask for these letters and stuff like that, is that some of the challenges that come with being a minority. One of the things I noticed in the application on this specific program that I'm looking at, and I haven't looked at many more yet, is that it asks you to prove that you are fluent in English if English is not your first language. And now let's talk about my case specifically. I have been in the US for 12 years. I got here when I was 12 years old. So half of my life is in one country, half of my life is in this other one. So I've spoken 50% of my life pure Spanish, and then the other 50, eventually more English. I have my degree, my bachelor's in mechanical engineering, in an US institution, 100% in English, same with high school. Yet, if I put that mark on my application that it is my second language, I have to prove to them that I speak English. And that was just, it always makes me mad, because I had to do this when I applied to undergrad, and I had to go test, and it was just ridiculous because it was so necessary. And when I went to the test as well, there was a speaking version. The lady that was interviewing me, she was like, I don't even know why you're here. And I told her, like, I don't know either. I know more English than like I would need to go to university, and it's just stupid that they make you do that. Now I also got in the idea of like, just don't put that you speak Spanish, or don't put that is your second language. And since I'm applying and I want to see how much resources minorities can get when they go into these programs, especially a master's degree in the STEM realm, engineering specifically, as a female, as a Latina, as an immigrant, I don't want to omit the part where I am that, because it's either I can compromise receiving a scholarship from the school, or I'm putting myself into, you need to test and prove that your English is worth, attending university. So it is also that complication, and I know a lot more things are going to come up as I'm applying or as I'm looking at it if I do decide to go for it. And I'm also, it would be things that I would touch on and that I will probably maybe either record or create content of, like, these are the obstacles I face, these are the things that make me mad, that just like becoming a US citizen and still being asked, well, are you actually born here, or are you just a naturalized US citizen? So those are the things that still come up that as an immigrant I find infuriating or frustrating, and that I know are going to come up as I venture into this world. And I'm not telling you at the end of this video that I am going to go for grad school or that I'm not going to go for grad school. I'm just kind of recording the process of, this is where we sit right now. My goal is that if I do go for, I will start in the fall. So I have 6 months from now, more or less, to get to there and, just kind of record my experience of how this is going. Anyways, I feel like that didn't get us to anywhere because I still don't have a conclusion, but this is where I am right now. This is where the things that I'm considering. I hope that maybe if you're considering grad school as well, it could be like another point of view, like somebody else is also looking into this, that also has those challenges of having a home, having an extracurricular, having a full-time job, and wanting to pursue that higher education, that master's degree, and how all of this plays into account as us being Latinas in engineering. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.